Louis Althusser's theory of ideology builds on the Marxist ideas of the base and superstructure. Marx's conceptualization of the base is as the means and relations of production. It can basically be understood as the economy, the systems that keep the economy alive and the relationships within them. The superstructure is, in a way, everything else. It is art, culture, the education system, religion, the state, power dynamics, established rules and rituals of society. It is ideology. In this dynamic, the base defines the superstructure, and the superstructure maintains the base. Althusser takes a more nuanced look at this. Where Marx would define the base as purely economic, Althusser analyzes the base as, more broadly, society, and the ways that the systems of society function. I would argue that Althusser layers Marxist economic ideas through psychoanalysis, using Lacan's ideas of how we come to understand and affirm ourselves as subjects. In his most famous essay, Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses, Notes Towards an Investigation, Althusser describes two systems that maintain society: repressive state apparatuses and ideological state apparatuses. Repressive state apparatuses, or RSAs, are systems that utilize violence to repress rebellion, maintaining the social order by instilling fear in its civilians. Examples of repressive state apparatuses in society are the police, the army, really any system in which physical threat or the threat... Examples of RSAs in society are the police, the army, really any system in which physical violence or the threat of physical violence are utilized to maintain order. RSAs are complex and integral to this model, but Althusser was building upon Marx's already existent ideas, and, though neither RSAs or ISAs are entirely independent of each other, I'll be focusing more on ISAs as I think they offer a more interesting analysis of society. Ideological state apparatuses are the systems that create and control ideology, such as family, religion, arts and culture, the media, the education system. In other words, RSAs control what you can and cannot do, and ISAs tell you who you are and where you belong in society. For instance, think of the Canadian high school system. In grade 8, the guidance counselor, the parents, and the student make a decision about what kind of high school the 13-year-old will go to: a collegiate, a technical, or a commerce school. These distinctions are basically shaping the rest of the student's high school career, whether they will go to university, what kind of university, what job they'll get, and what kind of life they'll live. The educational system is an ideological state apparatus that maintains class distinctions and places students on a track from which it will be very difficult to step out of. ISAs are maintained by seeming as if they are commonplace or natural parts of society. You don't think about not participating in them because they just make sense and are normal. Something that sets Althusser apart from Marx and others like him is his idea that ideology is omnipresent. In his essay, Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses, Althusser outlines two theses. First is, quote, "There is no practice except by and in an ideology," end quote. This highlights the omnipresence of ideology. Other theorists frame ideology as pervasive yet escapable. Many people in society conceive of ideology as something that clouds our vision of reality, something that can be looked at and thought about objectively if only the individual would try harder. This is the central idea of the Matrix, that you can take the red pill and see the whole system for what it really is. Zizek has a fascinating analysis of the Matrix in which he deconstructs this fetishized idea behind the film, the idea that you can somehow get out of illusion. Dissecting the scene in which Neo is offered the choice between the red and blue pill.
I want a third pill. So what is the third pill? Definitely not some kind of transcendental pill which enables a fake fast food religious experience, but a pill that would enable me to perceive not the reality behind the illusion, but the reality in illusion itself.
This is Althusserian thinking. Althusser's ideology isn't optional, and it's not a layer through which we think. It is everything. It is society, and it is the individual, the subject. There's no way to think, act, or live outside of ideology. His second thesis is, quote,
"There is no ideology except by the subject and for subjects,"
End quote. This attacks another pervasive but uninformed thought about ideology, that it is created and maintained by some evil entity, some individual or group that set out with the goal of world domination and societal control. But beyond that, this idea is central to one of Althusser's core concepts, interpolation. Interpolation is the process through which ISAs make an individual a subject. Interpolation is how ideology constitutes an individual's identity, and this is done through the constant process of hailing. Hailing is the process through which ideology asserts an individual as a subject. To illustrate the idea of hailing, Althusser describes a situation in which an individual is walking on the street and a policeman shouts,
"Hey, you there!"
Althusser says, quote, "The hailed individual will turn round. By this mere 180-degree physical conversion, he becomes a subject," end quote. This is because the individual has recognized that the you being hailed is himself. In that moment of recognition, he asserts himself as that subject. This moment is a concrete example of something that happens constantly. From the moment of birth, even from the moment of conception, the individual is constantly hailed and interpolated as a subject of society. Every time we introduce ourselves to another person, "Hi, I'm Liam," we reintroduce the scribes that have interpolated us. Shit.
The what?
We reinscribe the subject positions that have interpolated us. I'd really like to see what Althusser would have done with social media. In what follows, I will suggest that we can see social media as an ISA. When I say social media, I am referring both to the systems in place, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., and the social infrastructure that surrounds them, the ways we discuss and use them. Social media is a tool of capitalism, created to make money off of people's attention. The way it works is through reinscription of the social order and each person's role in society. Every time you go on to social media, it's saying, "Hey you, here are all of your favorite things, here are your friend groups, here is your social class." It's gathering all this information from you and constantly announcing it to you and insisting upon it. At the same time, it is telling you who you are. It's granting you a demographic and then telling you the role you're supposed to fill, the role of a friend, of a member of a social structure, and the role of capitalist consumer. Social media also constantly tells you that you don't have enough. It shows you the other members of society and asserts to you that you have failed until you become like them. It allows you to participate in this system and it allows you to feel a part of it, but it also tells you that you don't have enough and that you have to keep working and striving for more. It shows you glimpses of the lives of others and lets you develop a fantasy around them. This maintains itself so well because it teaches people who they are and how to be. None of us ever really know the answers to these ontological questions, so we keep returning to social media in the hopes that we will find them. Social media sets up these ideal subjects that are better at being subjects than you, and so you check in constantly to learn how to be like them, to learn how to better fit in. And the answer is the question: to participate more in society, to participate more in capitalism, to become more interpolated. This process is inescapable. As Althusser says, quote, "Individuals are always already subjects," end quote. From the moment you are conceived till long after you're dead, you are interpolated by the ISAs of society. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to resist interpolation. You may never be able to fully step outside of it and analyze it as a whole, but everyone has the capacity to theorize parts of it, to recognize the RSAs and ISAs that make up society, and to analyze the interpolation and hailings that constitute us as subjects.